Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk alignment, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of Alignful.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. I am so excited because I'm recording this intro on Monday, and when you listen to it on Wednesday, I will be in the mountains. Oh, I'm so delighted. I just finished the launch for the Tuning In membership, which was so amazing, and now it is time for scheduled rest, which I literally planned before the launch so that I could have intentional downtime after that big push so I can really rest and restore. You know, we push ourselves so hard and we go, and then we're like on to the next thing. And we often don't take time to pause and celebrate what we've done, regardless of the outcome, right? Just getting through that was powerful. So I scheduled time to rest. Also, if you've heard me talk about human design, well, this is what this week's episode is about, but I am a projector, and rest is maybe the most important for projectors because we don't have like our internal energy sources. So I really got through this launch by taking care of myself. So I leveraged my human design type, my projector type. Like I really showed up and guided and was like happy on my own little island. And then I also took a lot of intentional care of myself throughout the launch. So I set these office hours, as I'm calling them, where I am keeping my phone off between 7 p.m. and 9 a.m. And pretty much just I put my phone into airplane mode so I don't like engage and get distracted. I had meals delivered, like really healthy, delicious meals from a local woman who's just so fantastic to keep me nourished and well fed. And so I didn't have to stress about cooking during the week. And I also was really present about taking my supplements, my vitamin D, my probiotics, and my multivitamin, and drinking plenty of water, as well as going on walks and even doing some yoga during that. So it was a busy, crazy time. Oh my gosh, it was a crazy 3 weeks and like high energy, high intensity. But I knew my type, my human design type, my profile. I listened to my inner guidance, right? My inner voice, which there is a relationship to your human design and inner voice. And I just took care of myself. I didn't get frazzled and completely ungrounded. And it made all the difference. And now I'm going to double down on that by taking 5 days off and really not being on my phone. So when you listen to this, know that I am just enjoying myself. We have someone watching Mia, which makes me feel so happy and calm. And we're just going to be present, be in nature. So that all being said, today we have such an awesome episode. If you've been curious about human design, this is the episode for you. Human design basically offers a map of your unique genetic design with detailed information on both conscious and unconscious aspects of yourself. Using simple tools, it guides you to discover your own truth. If you suffer from a lack of self-love or clarity about your purpose and the direction of your life, this system can help you. When you come to human design as an adult, it has the potential to awaken your innate wisdom and power. Hello, inner voice. Your process of awakening to your true self requires two things: education and experimentation. For an adult, the road back to living as yourself can be challenging. Overcoming lifelong habits and the power of conditioning takes commitment, courage, and determination. That's from a website, jovianarchive.com. And they have a wonderful human design information. If you want to get your own chart read, I recommend you go to mybodygraph.com. You need your date, time, and place of birth in order to get your chart. And it's a really powerful system. It is the most intuitive system that I've ever learned as it comes to like personality typing and getting to know yourself. Ultimately, I believe that our inner voices are the ultimate guide and gateway to ourselves and the ultimate true north, right? For who you should be and what you should do. But sometimes before you get there, we need help. Sometimes we need some external information that we can relate to so we can leverage it to help ourselves. And me learning about human design has been so transformative And it's really helped me double down on my inner voice. And actually, my inner voice was saying things that now my human design type reinforces, and it just makes it feel that much stronger. I'm like, oh my God, my inner voice wanted me to do this. And now look at how my human design says this as well. And it's just so powerful. I cannot recommend this enough. And it can be kind of complicated and overwhelming when you first get your chart read. So I recommend you do your chart, pause this episode, go to mybodygraph.com, enter your information for your chart, and then listen to the episode so you know exactly what we're talking about with Lauren Armstrong, whose course I have taken. She is a human design expert, and she specifically is a human design for business guide because she's also a projector. And she helps entrepreneurs create aligned offers, leveraging their unique energetic makeup to create more income and impact. And she has so much to share. We have such a fun conversation. I can't wait for you guys to listen because we're both projectors. And if you're a projector, you're going to freaking love this. And if you're not a projector, you're going to learn all about your actual type. So we talk about all the types. We talk about the authorities. We talk about using your intuition as it relates to human design. And it's magical. So she's actually a special guest in the Tuning In membership this month, and she's going to help the members use their type to tap into their intuition on a live call. So I'm really excited about that. So make sure you get your body graph chart before you listen to this episode. It takes like minutes, okay? mybodygraph.com, your date, time, and location of birth, and then you'll see a bunch of gibbly glop, but we'll discuss that on the episode. So without further ado, here is the magical episode with Lauren Armstrong, a human design expert. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. This week, I am joined by the one and only Lauren Armstrong, and you heard about her in her bio that I read on the intro. But she is here to talk and answer all of your questions about human design. Woo-hoo. And yeah, woohoo! I know. She is super amazing. We met, actually, it's funny. I had just learned about human design about a month before, so in September 2019. And then I went to Business by Design live, met her randomly, and then she was talking all about human design. She told me she had a program, and we'll dive into this in a minute, but she told me she had a program that she was beta launching. And I was like, oh, that's cool, but she didn't tell me how I could sign up. She just mentioned it and got me all excited. And then that night, after I met her and learned about it, I texted her, or I direct messaged her on Instagram. I was like, hey, please let me know when your program's available. And she's like, oh, it's already live. And then I bought it that night, and then I took her program all about human design for business, and my life totally changed, my perspective changed, and I totally shifted how I approach my business, certainly, and also my life and how I interact with my husband, still working on that one. And she is just a wealth of information. So we're going to take you on a human design journey and kind of how she got here, and then what you all can do, how you can start applying this really great depth of wisdom into your life, like immediately, and how you can find your type. And just, I'll let Lauren talk about this a little bit more, but this is like the ultimate personality test. This is like Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, astrology on steroids. So Lauren, welcome.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that glowing testimonial. I could not have planned that. That was great.
Exactly. So will you just first give us a quick, overview of human design, a short one, because I really want to spend more time talking about your story and how human design relates to others. But for those who are like, what the heck is human design? Mm-hmm. Can you give them an update?
Of course. So human design is like, in a one sentence, how we energetically interact with the world around us. So for those of you who are like, okay, yeah, but what does that mean? It's a combination between ancient systems and modern science. So it's a combination between the Chinese I Ching or I Ching, the chakra system, the Kabbalah tree of life, astrology, and then also quantum physics, genetics, and biochemistry. So it's like this beautiful bridge between the woo world and the practical world, and it's a map of your energy. So how can you best leverage your energy when building a business, when interacting with your spouse, when like moving through life, when being in a group? Like, it shares all of those things and more in your human design chart. And so when you first pull it up, and you can, if you haven't heard of it before, you're like, I need this chart, like tell me how to get it. You can go to mybodygraph.com. It's not my website, but you put in your name, date, city, and state of birth. And the time, and it will give you a chart that looks like a combination between a preschooler's drawing project and a medical chart. And you're going to be like, what the actual heck am I looking at? And when you go to the info section, you're going to find out some basic pieces of information that you want to play with. And those are your type, your strategy, and your authority. But there is so much more.
Love that. Yeah, that's a really good overview. And the first time I looked at my chart, I was like, oh my God, there's so much information. What do I do with this now? I had done astrology. I'd had my astrological chart read, so I was used to more complicated charts. But like she said, a very good starting point is your type, your strategy, and your authority. And those alone can kind of kick off a lot of what you need to know, right? But we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, about what that means and how to go beyond just that surface level information. But first, I would like Lauren, my favorite thing about these interviews is we all are where we are because of how we've gotten here, right? We've gone through different things. We've gone through transformations. We've listened to nudges from, our inner voices, the universe, what have you. And it's easy to look at someone and be like, she's got it all figured out. And this is like so perfect. And I just want to do what she does, or I want life to be, easy and flowy like hers. But you had to get here. You didn't just wake up and you're like, I'm a human design expert and I live a perfect projector lifestyle, which we'll talk about a little bit more too. Yeah. So can you tell us, like, how did you end up being an online entrepreneur, meeting me at Business by Design Live, and having like kick butt human design programs that are selling out and that people are like coming to you and saying, Lauren, how can I work with you?
Yes, which has like been the dream, right? And it took a while to get here because I was doing things not in alignment with my energy because I didn't know anything about my energy. So the backstory is I used to be in corporate. I was working in the oil and gas industry. I got the job like right out of college. It was like the job that paid the most. So I decided to do that. And I was really kind of struggling there with, I'm making a whole bunch of money, but I'm not making any impact. And being like, this is not my life. Like, this is not my purpose. Like, I truly believe that everyone is put here on earth, like with something that they're meant to do. And I knew that that was not what I was meant to do. So I wanted to make money, but in my own business, but that like wasn't the only thing that I wanted, or else I would have stayed in my oil and gas career. Right. So, I left my corporate job after trying to do like the side hustle thing for a while, realizing like at the end of the day, I had no energy to work on my side hustle. We can talk a little bit about why that might have been when we go through the human design types, but I wanted to like be an equal contributing partner in my household. I wanted to live a life that was fulfilling and successful. And I wanted to like mean something and bring meaning to people and make an impact. I wasn't, when I first started out, making that much money in my business. Like when I say that much, I mean like any money in my business. I knew that I wanted to be a coach. I was taking trainings and I was like getting certified in things. But at the end of the day, like wasn't doing a very good job of selling, like what it actually was that I was doing. And so I found human design, and I'm someone who loves personality assessments. And one of the reasons I love personality assessments, which I found out like later, it really makes sense being a projector, is because projectors are here for the other, which is a human design type. And so being here for the other means you don't see yourself very clearly. And so what I find is a lot of projectors are looking for self-assessments and things that tell us more about ourselves because we can't see ourselves so clearly. So if you have an external source that's like, this is who you are, you're like, yes, thank you so much. Dana, I don't know if that was your experience as well, but
100%. I'm like, that is still is my experience. I'm like, Lauren, tell me about me.
Tell me more about myself. Thank you. So I saw someone talking about it on Instagram on human design, and I was like, okay, somebody's reading my diary to me when they read my type. And that was just like the highest level, one of the 5 types, like this is who you are. There's over 2 billion configurations of human design. So I knew that like I wanted to go down that rabbit hole, and I dove into like all of these books and all of these trainings. I enrolled in the International Human Design School because I was like, there is something to this. And so I decided like that I was going to start experimenting with my design in my business, because I was like, well, if it works for personal life, and like if this is really my diary, like it has to be applicable to the way that I'm running my business. And so I shifted how I was talking about energetically, and how, energetically, how I was showing up in my business. And I think I implemented those changes on a Wednesday, and I had 4 coaching spots available, and I had sold them out by Monday.
Oh my gosh.
Whereas I've been struggling to sell like one, like, right? Like clawing and fighting and initiating and selling, and like it felt so heavy. And I just like shifted my way of being. Like it wasn't more doing. It was a shift in my way of being, a shift in the way that I showed up. And I sold out those coaching spots. And so I created a plan to I was having people, after I sold them out, like people were coming to me and being like, okay, well, is there another way to work with you? And I was like, no, this is the only, like, I didn't know that people were going to actually take me up on these spots. So no, but I guess I can create something. And that's kind of where the beta program came, which Dana was one of the founding members of that program, to really make that scalable and get that impact and information out to more people, so they can leverage it in their businesses and have those crazy shifts like I did.
Wow. I love that story. And I love that you kind of went to it like, hey, I want to make money, but I also want to make an impact. And of course, that also very much relates to your type, right? And that, the coaching. So this is interesting. I didn't know this until you shared it, because one thing that I loved about her course, Human Design for Business, was that there is, like, when you look at your chart initially, there is so much to know, and it can feel overwhelming. And I kind of wanted to learn on my own. Also, as a projector, I like to go deep and like master things, but I didn't know where to start. And I felt like, oh God, what do I do? So her course, she's really good at breaking down the concepts and showing you how to apply them. Now, you said there are over 2 billion configurations. And this I think is really important, because I'll just use my husband as an example. He's a manifestor.
Yes.
And he's a 1-3 profile, I'm pretty sure. And he always, and my brother is similar, he always is like, don't type me, don't put me into a box, because he doesn't feel like it's possible that like, well, just because you're this thing, it doesn't mean that you can, oh gosh, I was wrong. Sorry. He's a 5-1 heretic investigator. Mm-hmm. He's like, don't put me in a box, because that can't possibly one type, like your Enneagram, like he's an Enneagram 5. Oh my God, he's the definition of an Enneagram 5. Sorry. But he doesn't want to be boxed in. But you just said there's 2 billion configurations. So just because you fit within a type, there are many ways that make you unique beyond just that identifier. Is that true?
1000%. Yes. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons, like when I say like what human design is and what it isn't, like human design is, it tells us, it's our energetic blueprint. It tells us how we're designed to interact with the world around us. There's over 2 billion configurations, right? It's an experiment, and you get to play at every step of the way. Like, is this going to work for me, or is this going to work for me? There's no like step-by-step process other than like living your type, your strategy, and your authority, which, gives you the right next step. it's really about tuning into your body, which we'll go way down that rabbit hole in a minute. But that's what it is. What it isn't, and what a lot of people try and kind of make it be, is like a belief system. It's not that. It's not a psychic reading. It's not going to tell you what kind of job you're best suited for. It does tell you how you can energetically show up in whatever job you're in most effectively. And most importantly, it is not a disempowering box that we put ourselves in. Like I've heard from a lot of people, like, I'm this type, so I can't. And oh my gosh, that like makes my skin boil. It's like, no, you're this type, so you can, so you get to align with your natural energetic gifts and stop trying to be something that you're not.
That is such a good point. And that was really the biggest aha for me, is that, yeah, it's not about what you shouldn't do. And you're so good about that in the program at reminding us, like, this isn't a shouldn't or a can't or a stay away from, but instead of trying to fix your flaws, you can double down on your strengths.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, don't we all want that? And what we'll find, as Lauren kind of talks more about this, is the world is wired toward, certain types. And what happens is we all think we need to fit within that box. And once you start to really get into the details of your own type, your own design, you start to free yourself from the box. And the box doesn't have to apply to all of us. In fact, we can be a lot more effective in this world with less effort, which is something I think we especially believe in this as projectors, let's be honest. I was like, when I found out, like, one thing she said is, really, you shouldn't be working more than 5 hours a day. I'm like, what? And thank you. That's what I've always wanted in my life.
Yeah.
It's like you get freed from the societal expectations and you get to leverage your own strengths and then really soar, like you described in your own business.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's so interesting is I feel like, especially in the entrepreneurial world, and I know that we have all types kind of like listening to us, but like, think about when you're doing something and you're doing it because you think you should, or because like someone else does it better and they're telling you that like their way is the best way, and you pay for a program or you enroll in some sort of training and it doesn't work for you. And so what we tend to do is we make ourselves wrong and try and fix ourselves, rather than saying, you know what, this probably wasn't meant for me and I could much better use my energy in a different way. Like we don't do that. We don't go there. Our brains tell us we're wrong and we have to fix something. And so what I love for human design is like the perspective shift of, well, maybe that's just not aligned, right? Like it doesn't mean things won't be hard, but we want to be in flow instead of in resistance. And for me, learning, a lot about the subconscious mind and how human design ties in so beautifully with that conversation is like, okay, so at the conscious level, you're trying, you're hustling, you're fixing, you're solving, you're figuring it out. But at the unconscious and the subconscious, that's where things flow. That's where your energy is. And so if you align your conscious and your subconscious, like that's alignment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it becomes, less effort of like going uphill, of battling what isn't naturally flowing. And like she mentioned as well, is she's connecting this, Lauren is, with the subconscious, which I've gotten into quite a bit. Well, that's actually what brought me here. So subconscious I started with, but I've been playing with human design too, and how it connects to this intuition, right? Your inner voice and your instincts. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing kind of connections with authority, and it's always kind of coming back to that tapping in and checking in and checking in and checking in and not checking outwards. And so when we start to understand our design, we start to understand our strengths, our authorities, our strategies, all of that, it makes it, truthfully for me, it makes it easier to check in, because one, I can check in and ask my inner voice and it will give me an answer. But before I even do that, I can first say, well, I can give myself, like, I booked a trip. Okay. I booked a trip to the beach yesterday, but the day before I had proposed that to my cousin who was going. I said, well, can I join you? And she said, yeah. And instead of me first asking my inner voice, I first waited, because I'm an emotional authority. So then the next day I had let it sit. Then I checked in with my inner voice. It was a yes. I booked the trip. It feels aligned. but knowing those little elements, it helps you, I think, have even more connection to self and to that inner knowing and that intuition.
1000%. Yeah. I love that. I love that you waited. Oh.
I know that's been a big one for me and I always roll my eyes about it because I just want to act because we've been taught, it's like the people with the gut knowing, that's a different authority.
Yeah.
It's sacral, right? Is it sacral authority?
Yes. Fabulous. Yes.
And then the spleen authority is like the one that I'm really interested in. Guys, we're going to talk about these. Sorry, I just went on a tangent, but that's like I say that's kind of like the Elizabeth Gilbert come to God moment, like on her bathroom floor, and she heard like the voice out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's your spleen. My mom has that.
So fun. But
so do you want to share with us then, Lauren, so we don't like go too far down a rabbit hole and leave everyone behind, of what are the types, what type as like the overall arching can you be, and then what are your authority types and your strategies? Just like kind of an overview so they know what we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. So let's do types first because you're one of 5, and then there's a strategy associated to each of the types. So we're going to reel it back in a little bit. And if you are like, okay, what the heck is human design? I pulled up my chart and it says these words and I've never heard of them before. Like, let's play with that. Let's experiment. So as far as human design types go, it's kind of like the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, right? Like you have a type and you are the things within that type. But again, a lot deeper. But here at the highest level, there's 5 types. So the first type, which both Dana and I are projectors. Projectors unite. If you are a projector, you are here to be a leader, a guide, an advisor. And there's a whole human design for business program and kind of language around that. And so if you hear the word or term advisors, that's the business term for a projector. So you are here to lead and guide. And when you're on track, or when you're in alignment, you're going to be feeling a deep sense of success. And when you're out of alignment, you're going to be feeling really bitter. And that's kind of your signpost of like, okay, did I follow my strategy? And so your strategy for a projector is to wait for the invitation. Now, waiting for the invitation only applies when you are leading or guiding someone else. So you don't have to wait for an invitation to like go to something. You don't have to wait for an invitation to move. You don't have to wait for an invitation to like do your favorite things. Like do them, follow your bliss, do stuff that excites you. It's actually really important for a projector to like do whatever they want. But in order to lead someone else, you need to be invited. And what I like to talk about for that is you're going to feel really bitter if you are meeting with a person, right? And they're telling you all of their problems. And as a projector, you really deeply see the other. You're here for the other. Your aura is like penetrating, like, okay, I see the problem and I know how to fix it. If you just then tell them, well, do this, this, and this, and your problem will go away. First of all, that person did not ask you, right? So there's no energetic space for them to receive that advice. And they aren't going to follow it. So you're going to be like, I'm giving you all of this energy, which, by the way, you don't have a consistent access to that energy as a projector. So you're giving them all of this energy. They're not following through. And then you become really bitter because you're like, I told them what to do and they're still in the same position. So that's kind of how the projector strategy works. It's waiting for an invitation, but only to lead other people. So waiting is not a passive process. And this is the number one thing that I see projectors kind of get wrong. If you could say get wrong, kind of poor language, but is that they're quiet and small, and then they're bitter because they're not invited and not recognized for their gifts. So in order to be recognized as a projector, it's such a beautiful interaction of energy when you show up excitedly about what you have to offer the world, are recognized for your brilliance, and then invited to lead someone else. It's like recognition is just the key element for projectors. So I'm going to pause there. Dana, do you have anything you want to add before I move on?
Yeah, my video's off, but I'm like cheering over here. So Lauren has had to coach me a lot on this, and I have to keep coming back to it because one, the relating to the bitterness is so real.
Yeah.
Is so real. And so, yeah. And so I'll text her and be like, oh my God, I noticed that I'm feeling really bitter. And that's that's showing me that I'm out of alignment, which usually means for me, I'm not using my voice. and I am pulling back. And then I'm mad that like when people, I've had people tell me about someone else that they're learning about intuition from. And I'm like, but that's what I teach.
Yeah.
And then I like cry in the corner, right? Instead, and Lauren has shared this with me really well, is show up on your island if you're a projector and just have your own gosh darn party. And then what's going to happen if you're in alignment, having fun, talking about what you really love and what lights you up, is people are going to start being like, what's going on that island? And they're going to start peeking, and then they're going to want to come over to your island.
Yeah.
And that's been so amazing for me because, again, especially from a business perspective, I've been taught to like track down those leads and direct message people and tell them they have to join you.
LOL.
And it's not in alignment, right? So not in alignment. And in fact, it pushes people away. And so the most uncomfortable thing as a projector is to really just put it out there, because what happens is I'll start to feel if I'm not getting recognized, then I stop putting things out there. But it's the consistent joy and showing up abundantly without expectation that is actually going to attract people. And those signs of feeling successful versus bitter are really good. And as she goes through the others, like those are just a really quick check-in. Like, am I feeling bitter? Am I feeling successful? And I can tell you too, with my husband, when you talk about manifestors, I'll give you some examples of that, but powerful. And just that little overview can be so helpful if you're a projector and any of these types to understand and just to do that check-in, like what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like in business, especially, right? Like showing up and being visible and just being excited and not showing up for recognition, but showing up in your energy, in your joy, and being like magnetically attractive to people, being like, oh, what's going on over there? Like that's the key. So really investigating what you want to investigate and learn about and share about. It doesn't have to be like, I have to only talk about this thing because this is what my business is about. Or even in relationships or at parties, for example, like a projector can literally walk into the room, stand in a corner, and you will watch people be attracted. Like, I want to say like moths to a flame, but like it sounds bad because the moths end up dying in that scenario. But just like being attracted to that person in the corner, it's your energy. Like you don't have to be the one to like show up and invite yourself and like hang out with someone else and be like, oh my gosh, I need you to like hang out with me or like me. Like you can just show up and watch the energy, watch it happen, watch it flow to you.
Yeah, I love that. It's really, and I mean, as projectors, she did mention the non-energy beings. And so we don't produce our own forms of energy, right?
We don't have consistent access to it.
Okay, that's a better term.
Yeah, semantics. But yeah, we don't have consistent access to that sacral energy or that life force energy like generators and manifesting generators do, which are two different types. So I'll go into those and then we'll kind of share the dynamics between all of them because I think that could be like kind of a helpful overview. So generators and manifesting generators are here to do the things they love. They're here to do work that they love. They're here to bring life force energy. Generators are here to master things. And usually it's like a step-by-step process that they love to like do and build. And like in human design for business terms, they're called builders. So if you've heard that, that's where that comes from. Manifesting generators are called express builders because they're a combination between generators and manifestors, which we'll get into next. But for both generators and manifesting generators, your signposts of being on track is satisfaction. It's like a deep satisfaction of like, I'm doing the work I'm meant to in the world. I go to bed every night like delightfully exhausted because I have spent my energy, the energy I generate consistently, my life force energy doing something that I love. And when you are off track or out of alignment, you are going to be feeling really frustrated. So I don't know if you've had a conversation lately with someone in a job that is not doing something that they love, but the word frustrated, once you know this lingo, is like, oh my gosh, you hear it everywhere.
Yeah. And is it true too that it's funny because I was like writing some of the key phrases that my audiences use, and frustrated is one of them, because is it true that generators take up a large percentage of the population?
Yes. So projectors are about 21% of the population. The combination between generators and manifesting generators is about 70% of the population. So that's a lot of people. Like, and so, yeah, if you're going to hear frustrated a lot, because it's people, it's generators or manifesting generators who are in positions that aren't necessarily correct for them, or they're doing things in their business that aren't necessarily correct for them. I love to use the analogy of a bathtub. I think I do this in my program, where generators and manifesting generators, when you're doing stuff that you love, when you're truly lighting yourself up, it's like you're turning on the faucet to a bathtub and all of this amazing juicy water is flowing into the bathtub. And it's just like, oh, amazing. The second you do something that you don't want to do, it's like pulling the drain off that bathtub and watching all of the energy flow out.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good analogy.
Yeah. Well, I work primarily with people on their businesses with human design, right? And so when they're talking about outsourcing specifically, it's like, oh, well, the task only takes me 5 minutes. And I'm like, it's not about the 5 minutes. It's about the energy drain.
Ooh, I just got chills when you said that. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Because the generators are good at doing, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And they've been trained in our society and culture to like do what they're told and do what they should and do, what other people tell them to do, without kind of being like, is this correct for me? Is this actually what I want to do? And it's not selfish to do what you want to do. It's actually how you're designed. Like you're drawn to it because that's what your energy is meant for.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So that's if you're a manifesting generator or a generator. And then our last one is a manifester. Is that everything for those two? Sorry.
No. One more thing. I got so passionate about the bathtub. So your strategy as a generator or a manifesting generator is to wait to respond. And so this is also like really commonly misunderstood and talked about. So I really like to use like waiting to respond. It's like responding to life, and waiting is not a passive process. Again, like wait for the invitation and wait to respond. Neither of those are passive. So wait to respond looks like lighting yourself up every single day. I don't care if that's like walking down the street and picking some daisies, or if it's like, painting in your garage, or like whatever it is that really lights you up, that sets your soul on fire, that makes you be like, oh, I lost track of time. I forget to eat, sleep, and pee. Like I love to do this activity, whatever that is, you get to light yourself up. And then if you want to talk about the energy of it, your frequency is so much higher when you are lighting yourself up. So then things are attracted to you that you get to respond to. So the universe source is bringing you things, and you get to take it through your authority, which is your decision-making strategy, which we'll go over next, and to decide, like, is this the correct next step for me? You get to wait to respond. So instead of initiating and pushing, which is not meant for you, you're not meant to go pitch and hustle and all that. You're meant to wait to respond. Like, what does that look like for you to truly just enjoy life and respond to opportunities that come your way?
Love that. And you told me, or in the course, and I found this really helpful. My friend, you read her chart, Shannon.
Yeah.
So she's a generator, and I call her like a little worker bee for the generators. She's so good at working. But she has tons of ideas. And you had used this analogy of like take a mind shelf. So whenever you get an idea as a generator, you can put it on your mind shelf, and then what you're responding to can come in many forms, right? It can be like the universe. You could hear something on TV. It could be a friend that suggests something, or like in the media, right? It can be a lot of things.
Yeah, it's anything external to you. So it's anything external to your brain. So yes, this is not my original like concept or example, but I love it. It's because it's so perfect. Like if you put something on your mental shelf as a generator or a manifesting generator, say you have like a ton of ideas like Shannon does, which I love. They're all like freaking brilliant. So you have these ideas and you're like, how could this not be meant for me? Like I need to do this right now, because you have the energy to do it and you're excited about it, right? But what if the timing isn't right? Right? So what if you put that on your idea shelf or your mental shelf or your notes app on your phone, and you say, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to wait to see what comes to me about it, and I can then respond to it. So then next day you're listening to a podcast and it's like, ooh, like, I like that, but what if, and it relates to the idea that you have on your idea shelf. Or you see a billboard and you're like, yes, or you are talking to a friend and you're like, oh, we could really do something about this. Like, let's start this other thing, right? So it's in response to something external to you, and it could make you take your idea down off its shelf and run with it. And that means it's correct timing.
So good. Okay, that's really helpful.
It's quite fun. There's so much more I could say about that, but like.
All right, so you generators, you get to be worker bees, right? You get to be builders and doers, but it has to be responding. It's ideal if it's responding to something external to you and something that lights you up and helps you feel really satisfied. Because the other thing, and tell me, is they're meant to really like use up their entire energy for the day, right?
Yeah. So that, like, going to bed delightfully satisfied is like a beautiful indication that a generator is like used up their energy. Like, if you're a generator and you're having a hard time sleeping, you probably haven't used up your energy for the day. And so you want to like incorporate more, maybe movement or doing an activity that you really like to do, right? So that you're using up that energy. And something else that I love to talk about for generators and manifesting generators is this concept of like, when you're lit up, that energy pours out of you, right? Like, you're so excited. Like, have you ever been around someone and you're like, oh my gosh, they just love what they do? That could be a really aligned generator. And so since you guys create the energy in your sacral center, you're generating energy, right? Generator. So your builders and then manifesting generators are express builders. They're doing the same thing, but like, they don't do it step by step. They kind of skip around. They're multi-passionate people. Like, if you ask someone what they do and they answer in like 4 paragraphs, that's usually a manifesting generator. Like, I'm a welder and I also do this, and I, teach underprivileged children how to read, and I do this and I do that. Like, it's like all of these things, and they don't necessarily go together usually.
I'm thinking like Marie Forleo.
Marie Forleo is actually a manifester.
She is? Okay.
I love the example of Gwyneth Paltrow for a manifesting generator, because she's got Goop, right, which is skincare line, and she has a TV show that like investigates all these other like funky things, and she's an actress, and like,
and
you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Oh, is she a singer? I don't even know.
Maybe not. Don't quote me on that, guys. I have not fact checked that.
Yeah. So she like does a whole bunch of different things. So when you're really lit up, you're generating that life force energy. And so those of us around you who are non-energy beings, who don't have consistent access to that energy, we take in that generator energy from you and we amplify it. So projectors, manifestors, and reflectors take in that beautiful generator energy and we amplify it. So if you're really lit up and excited, we're going to take in that beautiful energy and amplify it. If you're really frustrated and not in alignment, we're also going to take in that energy and amplify it. So it's not just about you. Like, please light yourself up for the good of the world.
Yeah, Shannon and I like have a rule of thumb that if she's really out of alignment, we don't get on the phone.
That's amazing.
Because then we both spiral downward.
Yeah. Like, come back up.
Yeah. I'm like, I need you. I need you to be really lit up though. That helps me.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. So then the next type, there's 2 left. There's manifestors and reflectors. So manifestors is about 8% of the population, and they are very forceful and impactful energies. And I know John is this, Dana. So yep. I'd love for you to like share a little bit about this. So they're here to initiate and get things started. And when they're on track, they're going to feel a deep sense of peace, like everything is working out for them. And when they're off track or out of alignment, they are going to feel really angry. Resonate?
Yep.
Yep. And so when a manifestor is angry, it's an indication that maybe they didn't follow their strategy. And for a manifestor, the strategy is to inform, meaning their energy is here to get things started, but they need to tell us how we can help them, how we can support them in order for us to do it, because we can't read their mind. So more informing for manifestors. And I meet 2 kind of manifestors in the wild. One is the manifestor who has been caged. They have self-caged because maybe at a young age they were told that they were like too big for their britches, or they cast a really long shadow, or like, who are they to like boss people around? It's because they're like, as a child, in this energy of like, I know what I want and I'm going to create it, right?
I love that.
Yeah. So like as a kid, their parents are like, okay, you can't tell the preschoolers like what to do, sweetie. Like you're not the teacher. And so they like caged themselves and they're kind of acting like generators, waiting for to respond to something. Whereas like, okay, we want to uncage you. We want to like live into that power and like reclaim your manifestor, like kingness, queenness. The other type of manifestor I meet in the world is the manifestor that's already living into that like, impactful energy, but isn't informing people around them. So they're just super pissed off. They're like, no one's like helping me. Like my team is so dumb. I'm like, well, did you tell them what you need from them? Like clearly, early, efficiently, and often? And they're like, no, they should know. And it's like, okay, well, it's to inform is the strategy.
I'm cracking up on this end of the things. I'm trying to think which one John is, and I see kind of both.
Yeah.
It's funny, I didn't think about this from the human design perspective, but I am constantly reminding him to communicate.
Yep.
Because everything happens behind the scenes, and then he honestly does get mad at all the other people around him, especially in work. I'm like, but have you communicated what's happening?
Yeah. Have you informed?
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. And then also he ends up being he's so amazing at getting things started. And a big part of his role is the creation of new ideas and new ways to solve problems.
Perfect.
And he also then has to see them through to the bitter end.
Ugh.
And then it's a bitter end.
Yeah, like horrible.
And then he gets angry at the end. Like when he's inspired and he's like in that creation process and like figuring something out, he's completely immersed in it. Mm. And it definitely kind of takes up all of his mind energy. But then like the longer it goes out, then he has to write the paper, then he has to edit the paper, then he has to tweak the figures. And all of that stuff is when kind of more of the problems come in.
Yeah, because that's not how he's designed to work. He's not meant to follow through and do things. He's meant to like start, initiate, and hand it off to a generator or a manifesting generator that would just love to see that project to conclusion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Poor John. We'll get him there.
But wouldn't it be so amazingly helpful if companies knew this and could hire and put people in the correct positions based on how their energy naturally flows and what they love to do?
Yeah, exactly. And at least managers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So, that's really around manifestors. If you run your own business and you're a manifestor, informing is so important. So this is around like telling people what it is that you offer, get really specific. Like what is it you offer? Your audience does not know, right? So inform early, inform often, create relationships. This isn't gross pitchy like energy. It's more of like, I'm informing. And manifestors can go out and initiate. So they can be the one to like, if someone has a podcast, pitch themselves and be like, I'd be great for these reasons. Like, this is what I want to talk about. Like, that's a really great energy coming from a manifestor. If a projector does that, it's gross. You're like, ew, they're a know-it-all. Like, why are they pitching me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. So just this sparked curiosity. Mm-hmm. What about like a job interview?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many things we can go down for that. So as far as like a job interview goes, like you're as a projector, for example, like you're not leading anyone when you're going in for a job, you're following your own natural curiosity, right? And you're saying, okay, well, I wonder if this would be good. And then if you get the job, that's an invitation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. So you want to be able to like follow your own interests as a projector. As a manifestor, like if you want to pitch, like I'm the best for this job, right? Like they can just go in and say that. And that's great.
And a generator would they respond to the job position? Yep. Like that's cool.
Yeah, respond to the ad. Like exactly. And then manifesting generator, same thing. But they're probably going to go about it a different way. I love to talk to manifesting generators because they're a combination of the generator and the manifesting generator, right? So the manifestor is here to initiate and the generator is here to like do the work they love and master things. So a combination of those two things is like everything in the manifesting generator wants to initiate, wants to start something. And so it's really hard for them to like put something on their shelf and wait to respond. But once they do respond, once they're in it, they can then initiate more effectively. And there's no room for perfection for a manifesting generator in the beginning of a process, because you can go to like step 42 and then back to step 8 and then to step 3. Like it doesn't have to be step by step and you can still be really efficient and effective.
Love that. Okay.
Okay, and
Excellent.
last one, reflectors. 1% of the population.
Wow.
You're here. Oh, sorry. Did I interrupt you?
Oh, I know. I just said wow.
Yeah, 1%. The 1%. I actually did a reflector chart reading yesterday, which is really, really fun because a lot of the words, a lot of the free information out there about reflectors is really general. So I'm about to like fit that stigma and give you really general information because there are not a lot of you out there. But if there are, if you're listening to this and you're a reflector, one, your life's about to change if this is the first time you've heard of it. And two, you're really here to take in your environment and reflect it back. In the business BG5 language for human design, you're called an evaluator. You're really here to like have deep wisdom about things that are going on around you, and you see the world very differently. You mirror back your environment. So it's important for you to be in the right place. And that usually means being invited in. And when you're on track, you're going to feel this sense of like surprise and delight. And when you're out of alignment, you're going to be feeling really disappointed. So those are all of the types.
Surprise and delight. That's fun.
Yeah, isn't that nice? It's like such a playful energy. Reflectors are.
Yeah. Now, what was out of alignment?
Disappointed.
Disappointed. Okay. And now, do they have anything to do with the moon?
Yes. You want to go there? Let's go there.
Let's go there.
They're more like lunar creatures versus the rest of us, which are solar. And also, what I found is that, you know, when they track their energy, like in relation to moon cycles, it's really impactful for them. So like that's the consistency that they have in their chart. So whereas the rest of the types might feel, they have consistent access to energy in certain centers. There are 9 centers within the body graph. The reflectors have all open or undefined centers, meaning they have inconsistent access to all of the centers in the body graph. But what happens in human design and the celestial weather, right? Like we call them the transits, that every day you get access to something in the transits. So for reflectors, they're really relying on the energy of the transits and the people that they're around for how they're kind of feeling, acting, behaving. And so that's more important for reflectors than it is for the rest of the types, because the other types have some consistent access to some of those energy centers. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. And yeah, I love that it is cycling with the moon. And again, if you're a reflector, this would be a good time to look at what is Kate Northup's book, Do Less, which is all about the moon cycle.
Yeah.
And just, flowing your energy with that. That's really powerful.
Yeah. And in human design, there's, if you're like a reflector and you're maybe already tracking your moon cycles, like the woman I met with yesterday, I showed her how to pull like a just now chart to see like what's happening in the transits. And she was like so blown away. She's like, Lauren, I literally just told my husband last night that I just want to be alone and I don't know why. I pulled the transits and the gate of aloneness is like lit up right now in my moon gate. I'm like, yes, that exactly.
And then to honor that energy, right? So when you feel it, follow it.
Yes, exactly.
Is this, I think, did you recommend the pattern to me?
Probably. That app scares me. It's so accurate.
Yeah, anyone out there, so if you're getting into this, there is an app, and anyone, Lauren, that I recommended it to, since you recommended it to me, is just like totally blown away. It's called The Pattern, and it's in the App Store, and you put in your details, and then it gives you like a daily. What is it based on?
I don't actually know. I think there must be human design in there, but I know that astrology is one of the basis things of it. But some of the things that it says, it's like, oh, yep. Like the only ones that don't relate to me all the time is the relationship ones. Probably because I'm like, not a single person, but the rest of them, it's like, oh, you're going through this period right now. I'm like, they're again reading my diary. Like, how do you know?
Yeah, and it's just like, for me, it's a nice reminder because it will pop up as a reminder each day. Mm-hmm. And especially I'm going to ask you about this too, especially as you learn about this, what you'll learn is that you've been conditioned to be and act a certain way. And so having kind of, it takes a while to change any sort of habit, but when you're changing, shifting how you're being, so it's more in alignment of how you're meant to be, it can take time. So just having the app as a little reminder, it's like, oh, right, check in. So can you talk about deconditioning a little bit?
Oh my gosh, yes. Are you ready for me to like totally get on my soapbox about this?
Yes, hop on up.
But like I haven't been already. Yeah, hop on up. So within your human design chart, and I mean, this is even if you're not into human design, right? Like if you're like, what you're saying sounds interesting, but like, no, don't believe it. Okay. You probably understand or believe in like conditioning, right? Like, so you're in an environment and you're taking on conditioning or the ways that you think you should be behaving or acting. And so what I love to do is look at our charts, our human design charts, and where we have defined centers, which if you're looking at your body graph right now, they're going to be colored in. Where you have a defined center, you have consistent access to energy, and it's just like the way that you naturally are. You're pushing energy out, right? So I want to talk in a little bit about Dana's defined centers and why she's like so uniquely qualified to do the work that she's doing. But when you have undefined centers, that's when you're taking energy in. And when you're taking energy in, you're taking on maybe other people's stories or beliefs or things that just aren't yours, that are inhibiting you from acting kind of how you're meant to be, your deconditioned self. So if you take away conditioning, that's deconditioning, and then you are self. You are who you are meant to be. You're not acting out of like trying to fix or solve or whatever. So I find it's so much fun. Like since doing a subconscious mind transformation certification, which is kind of a mouthful to say, but after doing that, really looking at clients and friends and all of that in my own chart and looking at, okay, well, where I have open centers, where I'm taking energy in and where I've been conditioned, I'm likely to believe and experience and express patterns that are not self, that are not serving me. And if I can decondition those patterns, if I can eliminate them from the root in my subconscious, then I can move forward in more alignment, more as self. And I could stop running these patterns that are extremely unhelpful. So as an example, because I do way better with examples like than all of that like high level knowledge. So in your human design chart, there's a little triangle. Dana has this defined. I have it undefined, meaning it's white for me and it's colored in for Dana. But I have this undefined, the heart center. And the heart center is all about willpower and it's about worthiness. And it's in the low expression, if you have this undefined, it looks like a lot of energy trying to prove yourself or get approval or prove that you're the best, right? It's like proving energy. And that's not like helpful, right? Like it's not necessarily like the best use of time, energy, or effort. And it's not what's meant for me, but it is like ingrained in how I go about doing some things. So when I learned about subconscious reprogramming and transformation work, I did something where I took myself through an exercise and had my coach do it with me so she could actually like talk to my unconscious and had me eliminate this limiting decision that I made in that open center of like, I'm not enough as I am. Because that's the root of what was causing me to try and prove myself, because I didn't believe this conditioned state. I didn't believe that I was enough as I was. So when you can eliminate that root problem or thing that's like living inside of you, you can live more in alignment with knowing that you're enough as you are. You eliminate all of that energy that you're spending trying to prove yourself. Does that make sense?
Oh, it's so good. And I think a lot of people can relate to that worthiness factor. And yeah, you can just think of all different areas of your life that, I mean, yeah, when you get into the subconscious, so, you know, our subconscious is what, 90% of what's actually going on. So, you know, our conscious mind is actually not, it's what we live from, and yet it's also not what we're making decisions from.
Right. Yeah. And we're
conscious of it.
So much time trying to figure it out and solve it and strategically plan, and like all of that lives in your conscious. So there's stuff at play, and you notice like all of these patterns that you're running. Like what I've been able to do is kind of map out what are some of the patterns that you've been running, or the limiting decisions that you have, and where are they mapped out based on your chart. And so if I can see them open, it's kind of like a shortcut, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, if I can ask you really specific questions to get to the root of that problem in that open center, let's eliminate that so that it's no longer in your subconscious, and your conscious and your subconscious will be more in alignment, and you can move forward with ease and grace and quicker. So it's like a hack for healing, essentially, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, it's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Just, it's whenever we're learning something new and especially embracing our true selves, I mean, that even happens with the inner voice work is it's just because you know it, it doesn't mean you're be able to act from that place all the time because we've been conditioned to do otherwise. So just keep that in mind that there are many levels of deconditioning that you can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that it will take time.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Okay. Can I share like why you're so uniquely qualified to do what you do with your defined centers?
Well, sure. I would be more than happy for you to share that. She said that to me, guys, on the podcast, and I was like, wow, that never even occurred to me. And again, that's projector energy, is I can see others very clearly, and I cannot see myself very well.
Yeah, and so normal. And part of the reason I'm doing this, well, one, obviously to share how amazing you are, Dana, but that's not the only reason. It's like, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, like, how do I know how my energy can best be used? Like, I want you to kind of listen to this part and see yourself in this explanation and hear like how you can leverage your natural energy, right? Because where you're defined in your centers. So this is going deeper, right? So we talked about types, we talked about strategy. We haven't even talked about authority yet. And that's really about listening to yourself and your body. And where you're defined in your centers, so there's 9 centers, you have consistent access to that energy like we were talking about. So for Dana, she has the solar plexus defined. And so for solar plexus, that's all around emotions. So Dana, you create your own emotions and you have consistent access to that. But you know what you also have is an understanding and ability to regulate those emotions. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're probably going to magnetically, naturally attract people who are either in the low expression of that defined center, meaning like they have these emotions and they don't know how to regulate them, or people that are undefined in that center and kind of don't have a concept. They don't have consistent access to their emotions and they don't really know how to use them or leverage them or speak about them. So people are going to naturally be attracted to you. You don't even have to do anything about this, that are looking for that energetic difference in you that's at that higher expression. So this is this whole podcast, right? It's like tuning in, listening to your emotions,
right?
Yeah, listening to your body. Like you're naturally qualified to talk about those things because that's something that you energetically are already doing within your own body, and you're going to attract people who maybe don't know how.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. And the funny thing is I've been led a little bit deeper to speaking directly about emotions and emotional processing and how to, identify, discover, process, and clear them so that we can then move forward without kind of that emotional baggage.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. That's really like natural. That would be natural for you and your energy, right? So you're creating something and talking about something that you have defined, you have consistent access to. You also have consistent access to your root, which is around adrenaline drive. It's a pressure center. And so you might be attracting people that are really stressed out and don't know how to deal with their stress. And so for you, you have a consistent way of managing stress and pressure.
Also true.
Yep.
The original world I wanted to talk was originally I was talking about self-care because I'm like, this is like how I live. And so many people are operating from, and of course it's integrated into what I am talking about and teaching, but absolutely, definitely seeing people come who are like overdoers.
Yeah.
And they're looking to manage that energy.
Oh, yes. Yes. And so like also your spleen is defined. So your spleen is all around like what's healthy for me, what's correct for me. It's the survival instinct, but it's also your intuitive knowing. So when you talk about your inner voice and just knowing and tapping into that, people who don't necessarily have consistent access to that are going to be drawn to you because you can help them see that, right? And where it is in their bodies.
Right. And so just because someone might have an undefined spleen, it doesn't mean they don't have access. It's just they don't have as consistent access. So it's more of a practice to cultivate.
Correct. Yes. That's what that can look like. So they're going to be naturally attracted to you. It's just an energy, right?
Because I complete them, right? I mean, is that kind of what the open and closed centers is? You're attracted to something that kind of completes your open center. Is that accurate at all?
I don't love the word complete because it means that you're missing something, but it essentially like you're drawn to what you don't have. So for example, like someone with an undefined spleen would be attracted to someone with a defined spleen because it makes them feel safe. Like that's a center around safety. So if you're in a high expression of safety and intuition and what's healthy for you, and someone who has an undefined spleen who maybe has an inconsistent access to that, they're going to like be drawn energetically attracted to that because they're looking to feel safe. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then your heart, like you have consistent access to willpower and to follow through and to worthiness. And you know that like the work that you're here to do in the world is important. And so you might be attracting people who have this undefined, where they're not really sure of their sense of worth. Or maybe can't follow through on things or commitments that they want to make to themselves or to the world. So you might be attracting a lot of undefined hearts.
And now I'm going to want to pull the human design of every single client I work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then your identity center is like, you know, when you're off track or out of alignment. And the story that I shared earlier about like my leaving corporate, it was like, I just had this inner, like, I just knew like, this is not correct for me. This is not my direction. This is not my purpose. This is not my plan. This comes from your defined identity center. It's like, you know, when you're out of alignment and you're like, I have to do something to fix it because this is not what's meant for me. And so you might be attracting people who are, you know, feeling like they don't have a direction in their lives. And they're looking for kind of like, how do I find that voice? How do I find the direction in my life? How do I tap into love? How do I tap into my identity and who I am? And so that for you is very natural because that's where you have consistent access to energy. So if you put all of those things together, you then have offers and programs and things, right, that are naturally magnetic because that's the energy you bring to the world.
Oh my gosh. And you just validated all of my messaging.
Oh, good.
You honestly, like listening to that, I'm like, wow. And, you know, so I'm curious because I kind of was looking at how I want to talk about what I'm offering. And I did really kind of go through it and look at it differently. And a lot of this was coming up. So that's innate because that's what naturally. So for example, someone who might have all of those centers open, would it be safe to assume that they wouldn't feel called to talk about those things?
Yeah, that might be true, or it might be in a different way. So there's kind of two schools of thought on the subject. One is to create an offer or talk about things that you have consistent access to energetically, right? So those are the defined centers. The other school of thought is to say, okay, where you have inconsistent access or open centers, if you've found wisdom there, like if you've deconditioned to the point of like, because open centers are not bad things. They just tend to have some conditioning around it. And once we move past the conditioning, that's wisdom. So for example, Dana, you have a open or undefined throat. So for you, if you were like, I'm going to be a copywriter, for example, that's like looking to like create something that you have inconsistent access to, like you have inconsistent access to that communication piece. But if you had kind of transcended, like, okay, you could take on other people's words and make them flow, then that's like a wisdom point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or when I hang out with my husband, right? He completes my throat center.
Exactly. So someone who has these centers undefined, like I would ask them if they're drawn to this work, like, why are you drawn to this work? Are you trying to prove something? Are you like, do you think it's what you should be doing? Or is it essentially like a point of wisdom for you? Is it something that you can help other people through because you've gone through it and you've deconditioned and you're really living in yourself and in your purpose?
I love that. Well, and that's actually a good transition too of making decisions, right? Why are you drawn to this? Because that is the decision-making authority has been extremely helpful for me. And even when I talk to other people and clients about it, can you touch on that?
Of course. And this is such a beautiful tie-in to like inner voice conversations. Yes. So if you're looking at your human design chart, we just talked about type, we talked about strategy, and the other place I told you to kind of start was your authority. And so if you're first playing with human design, these are the things to start experimenting with, and you're going to watch your life like completely transform very, very quickly because you're listening to yourself, you're listening to your body. And the way that you do that is by following your authority. So there are 9 different authorities. So Dana, if it's okay with you, I might just do like the top 3.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. So I want you to think about your authority as the way that you best make decisions. And so what most of us are doing, totally guilty of this before I found human design, is like, I think I'm pretty smart. So I'm like figuring things out in my brain, again, consciously, of like what my next step is, what I need to do, what my strategy is, all of this good stuff. And I wasn't listening to my body at all. And if you're like, where do you feel that in your body? I'm like, I don't know. My body's just like a meat suit, and it's like dragging around my soul and like my brain. And that's where I'm doing most of the work. Okay. So human design would say, your wisdom would say, like, your decision-making strategy, your authority lives in your body. So the number one, the highest percentage of people have the authority. It's called emotional authority. And if you have your emotional solar plexus, the brown triangle pointing inwards on the right of your body graph, if that is brown for you, you have emotional authority. About 50% of the population does. Okay, so what the heck does that mean? That means that you are designed to make decisions by waiting, by making decisions based on your emotions. There is no truth in the now for you. And I go way deeper into this in my programs, but I will explain it quickly using the wave analogy, right? So we're going to say that, let's say Dana, for example, is a projector, and all of this beautiful information works together in a dance. So Dana is a projector with emotional authority. So what she gets to do is follow her own curiosities and see what really lights her up, right? And she's going to be investigating and learning things and showing up on her own island. And then she's recognized and invited to do something. She does not have to say yes just because she's invited. She gets to take it through her emotional wave, her decision-making strategy, her emotional authority, to determine if that is the next correct step for her. So she'll go through the high of the, oh my gosh, I was recognized, I'm invited, I'm so excited to share what I'm so excited about, right? And then she'll go through the low of like, I don't really think I want to do this. Like, who am I to even talk about this? Like, I don't want to share about this. And then there'll be a calm water, just like a wave, right? It builds, it crashes, and then there's calm water. And the calm water is really around making the decision, entering into something from an emotionally detached place. It's not in a high, and it's not in a low. And what's really interesting for emotional authorities is that when you're in the high, it feels like 100%. It feels like a hell yes. So when you're like, you hear all of that, stuff around, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. That's not true for you, but that high is going to feel like a hell yes. And then you're going to feel the hell no if you wait it out and don't impulsively make that decision. And then the calm water is going to feel like about an 80% yes or no. It's going to feel like you know what, I think I'd really like to do that. Or, I don't think that's correct for me right now. And that is the empowered and emotional place that you get to. Your body is begging you to make decisions from that place.
Oh my gosh. And y'all, 50% of the population, we are not making decisions this way.
Yes, you are, because there's so much like conditioning, right? Around like, do it now, and like FOMO and, you have to make a decision right now. And that's like valued. I have no idea why, but yeah. You're not designed that way. And when you do that, have you ever like entered into something in the high of that emotion? You've said yes, and you've gone through and you've done it, and you're like, I knew I shouldn't have done this.
Yeah, all the time. And even worse is because I used to be a total yes person, and I would say yes and then pretty much immediately regret them. And so then I became a flaky person because then I would cancel on my commitments.
Yeah. Whereas if you would have let yourself ride the wave, you would have come to the no, and you wouldn't have committed, and you wouldn't have entered into it. And for you specifically, Dana, with a defined heart, it's really dangerous for you to commit to things and back out. Like, it's not good for your actual physical heart.
Yeah, and it feels horrible. And so that's when I kind of started to get on this whole path of like alignment, because I was saying yes to so many things, which weren't things that I wanted to be invited to, right? As a projector, I have a lot of talents and I've mastered many things, but sometimes I get invited to the wrong things. And so whatever part of me, I would say my ego, but whatever part of my authority would then say, well, if I'm invited, I should say yes. Mm-hmm. And then I would feel either, regret or stress or worry about that commitment. And then I'd either cancel, which would feel also horrible, or I would follow through, which would feel horrible. So it was like and maybe a lot of the listeners are in that place. It's a really uncomfortable place to be in. And one thing I've said, about, the people who I'm speaking to, who I want to join the membership and all of that, is you wish that you could say no confidently. And this is one of the things is you become more confident if you take it through your authority, because you don't have to be 100% sure, but you're more clear on what that answer means.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I love that. So good. Okay, so the next one is for people who are either generators or manifesting generators. It is possible for you to have sacral authority. So if you see something that says sacral authority, this is yours. And that is where people say, like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. It's an instantaneous gut feeling. And so for you, I want you to really, like, maybe you're like, oh yeah, duh, Lauren, I like already knew that. Cool. But what I really want you to do is feel that in your body. What does a yes feel like to you? Because when our brains know how we best make decisions, sometimes our brains like to trick us and say, hell yes, even though body-wise, it's not a hell yes. So I would love you to ask yourself, like, what does a true yes feel like in my body? And what does a no feel like? Because then you can tap into that feeling whenever you're making decisions. So if someone, like, let's use the generator, for example. You're a generator. You're going about your life. You're lighting yourself up. You're waiting to respond. Something comes to you and you get to say hell yes or hell no. What do you feel like in your body? Is it expansive and a hell yes? Or is it constrictive? Or do you feel like a pit in your stomach? Or do you feel, like, look for what are those feeling indicators, because that's a yes moving forward and taking action, or no, this is not meant for me.
Love it.
Yes, so good. Okay, and then the next one we'll do is splenic authority, because I know, Dana, you like love the spleen.
I do.
Yeah, it's really good. So the spleen is your intuition. Like, it's where your intuition lives in your body graph. And if you have this undefined, it does not mean you don't have intuition. So, like, that's a very common question that I get. You might have an innate wisdom and have actually more intuition than people who have it defined. So, if there's no one right way, one right conversation, you are designed for exactly what you're meant for in this life. I say that to literally every single person that I talk to about their design, because what we tend to do is want someone else's design because somehow we think it's better, which is not true. We are designed for what we're meant for in this lifetime. Anyways, off soapbox, telling you more about the spleen or splenic. I've heard it multiple different ways, but for splenic or splenic authority, you are making decisions based on an intuitive knowing. It's like a quiet whisper that is saying, like, that something is correct for you or not. It speaks once and in the moment. So if you're like, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that, or, oh, I knew I wanted to go forward with that, and you didn't listen to yourself, that might be, if you're splenic, just really tap into that. What does that yes sound like? What does it feel like? Where is it in your body? How do you know that it's correct for you and right to move forward? So if you're a generator or a manifesting generator, you will not have this authority. So, only projectors or manifestors can have it. So let's say you are a manifester and you are envisioning a world that you want to create, right? Because you're an initiator, you're a starter, you're here to get the ball rolling. And you have this grand idea and your spleen says, like, oh yeah, move forward. That's when you get to move forward and take action. Or if you have this big vision for an idea that you want to get started and your spleen's like, not yet. Listen to that. That's your authority. It's the way that your body's talking to you. This is intuitive knowing.
That one. So my mom is a manifester with splenic authority, and she has so many great examples of how this has come up. And it's really helpful to hear her talk about it, because it is not my experience at all. Like, as an emotional authority, I could pretty much feel like 7 ways about something. And, it's the wave. But so she had this story recently where she was they moved into a new house. And so they were settling it. And she was like walking around the house thinking to herself, she said, man, I can't wait till the day when this is all done and I can sit on the couch and read. And then she heard, read the books now. And she's like, what? Was in her voice? Was that you? Where did that come from? And so every time it happens for her, I don't know if this helps for my other spleen people, is it almost surprises her. Like, the voice just shows up and then it's gone. And then she's like, wait a second. So just having that knowing of that does come up and starting to lean in and trust that is real, because I think we're kind of taught that something like that is maybe made up and you have to back that up with some sort of something physical and tangible, and you can't with that spleen authority. Is that correct?
Yes, that's such a perfect, yes. It's almost like, I've heard someone say with splenic authority, they were driving on the freeway and they heard out of nowhere, like, change lanes.
Yeah.
Right. And you change lanes and then there's a huge car accident in front of you. It's that kind of like instinctive knowing that comes up. And I love to give this example. I don't know if I've ever done this on an interview or not, but like Taylor Swift is a splenic projector, and the song "I Knew You Were Trouble When You Walked In," like the perfect example of splenic authority. She didn't listen to it and she went forward with it anyways, but she knew.
I totally just got body chills. Okay, so let's see. Taylor Swift, so she's a projector, okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to watch her documentary because that will probably give me some does she know? I wonder if she knows she's a projector.
I don't know, but she says the word bitter in that documentary like 8 times.
Right? So we have these tells. I looked up because you guys know how much I love Beyonce and Jay-Z. They are both generators. Mm-hmm. You said, do we know any celebrity manifestors?
Marie Forleo.
Right. Marie Forleo. Yeah. And you said Gwyneth Paltrow is like a Manny generator.
I don't actually know her chart for sure, but I would like bet money on it. And so I love to like talk about entrepreneurs in that space because that's kind of, you know, the world that I'm in. But like, yeah, so manifesting generators.
Manifestation Babe is a manifesting generator. Catherine Zenkina.
Oh, is she? I thought she was a generator.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Guys, don't quote me. Never quote facts from me.
That's all right. I mean, well, so I love this example, like that Gary Vee is a projector.
What?
So think about it, right? His whole message, his visibility is all about hustling. But who's the one actually doing the work? His team. He's not the one doing anything. He shows up. He gets filmed, so he's visible. He's recognized and invited to things, and people ask him questions, and he gives advice.
And he's on his island like no other. He's like, you can join me here or not, but this is my party.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa. That's really interesting to me because I feel like, but what could happen, and tell me this, is people hear his projector message, but they then take it on and try to generate from that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's more of the person receiving it than okay, my mind has just exploded. Okay.
So fun. And then I recently just listened to the Alicia Keys book on Audible, and she's an emotional projector. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole other element of human design. Like, this is what I wish people knew about human design. Like, there is so much more than type. There's so much more than strategy. There's so much more to authority. There's this concept of profiles, and it's how you manifest your purpose in the world. And for Alicia Keys, she's a 4-1 profile, which is essentially like you get your opportunities through people that you know. And so when you're listening to that book or reading that book, she shares like about her brother's friend introduced her to someone who then she met Oprah. Like, right? It's like all these connections for people that she knows. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so great. This is how she manifested her purpose, which was to express how she feels through song, right? and do what she loves to do, and is recognized and invited for things. So it's just so fun to watch.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I do her book. Actually, that will be my next audiobook because I just finished one. Wow. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. Cause that was one question. I mean, guys, it's hard even, especially, so look, Lauren is a verbal processor is her strategy, right?
Yeah, I am. I talk.
Is that your authority or your strategy?
So every projector strategy is to wait for the invitation. My authority is I'm a self-projected projector, or G-centered authority, meaning I talk out my decisions. So my energy shifts when I've come to the correct kind of conclusion for myself.
And see, that's a cool one too, because you sense that, right? That energy shift.
Yeah. And what's really fun is to have actually someone mirror it back to me. Like, so I'll just be talking and I ask, for a sounding board essentially to be like, okay, what did you hear me say? Like, which one is, because I'll have my fiance will be like, well, obviously you want to do that. I'm like, well, I didn't know it until I came out of my mouth, and I just needed you to like hear that and reflect it back to me. I don't want your advice. I just want you to like listen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, we might have to have you back on for a relationship talk. Because that is it's like, so everyone, as you get into this, remember this is just the tip, but also even just the tip of the iceberg, you can really apply so much of this. Like go to mybodygraph.com, figure out those initial things, which is your type, your authority, and your strategy.
Mhm.
And then, what you can look at like the little keys and then follow Lauren on Instagram because
Hello.
and we'll link her in there. But will you say it? I don't want to say your Instagram
Yeah,
wrong.
that's all right. There's a lot of people that have my name apparently. So it's underscore Lauren E. Armstrong underscore. And it'll say Human Design for Business at the top. You know you found the right place.
Yeah. And I'll tag her on this because, she keeps talking about it in really different ways and breaks it down. So this is a new path of learning. So you're not going to become a human design expert in a day, a week. You don't need to, but if you can start pulling some pieces of this out and applying it to yourself, it is really powerful. And then as you feel called to, based on your emotional authority, you can start to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah. And if someone like came to me and they're like, I don't want to know anything about human design, like I don't even need to learn it, but like, how do I leverage it? Amazing. Like I would so much rather you live your design than you learn every little element about it, because that's the point. It's like when you're like, oh, I wish I came like with an instruction manual of how I worked. Well, you do. It's your human design chart.
Yeah, and I mean, you can apply, and this would totally be another topic that I'll let you guys vote on Instagram if you want this, but you can apply it to your relationships, to your kids. I mean, it's very, very, apparently we can apply it. I can do Mia's human design chart, guys, okay?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more to it. Like, there's what kind of manifester you are. Are you a specific manifester or a general manifester? There's what kind of brain do you have? Do you have an active brain or a passive brain? Do you need more food and to be like sitting at a desk and like taking notes or like working really diligently? Or can you kind of like walk around and eat like sparingly and like kind of like as you're doing something, it's more passive? How do you take in information? How do you, best eat? Like, are you a direct light person where your digestive system works better when you're eating in sunlight, or indirect light person where you digest food better if you're not in sunlight? Like there's so much more within your chart, both like relationships, business, like, parenting, all of the things. And it's just like so much fun to dive into people's charts and to be like, okay, well, this is why you're amazing. And you should really be like, not should be, because that's, not great terminology, but like you could really be doing this in the world with your natural energy and how you work. Also, this is who you should hire to best support you, right? Like there's so much here.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. We could talk about this forever, guys, but this is already a delightfully long episode. But I think it needs to, it needs to be a conversation to kind of invite anyone to start to learn more. I'm going to invite you all to follow Lauren and check out all that she has to offer. She's got programs. The Human Design for Business program is the one I took, and it was so enlightening. Like I cannot share enough how enlightening it was, and illuminating for how I show up. And also, guys, you may find that as you learn about your chart, like I felt like it was a giant exhale. Like, oh, I can stop working after 5 hours or 4 hours. I can take a nap during the day. I can outsource so much stuff so that I can focus on guiding and showing up and doing, what's in my best interest. I can say no to things because I have relatively limited energy, and I want to use that on those who I can really serve, who have invited me. And so I can stop trying to, fix or help or even guide anyone that hasn't invited me and who doesn't want it. And it just feels like such a relief.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful.
So you all have access to that. Anything else, Lauren?
I think I've said this like 3 times, but I'm going to say it again. You are wired for everything that you're meant for in this life. And when you pull your chart, like it's almost like everything that you hoped that you would read about yourself is what you will find, because it's what you're drawn to. and it's what you're meant for. So I will leave it at that. It's beautiful energy. And when we get to show up in the world the way that we're meant to, so many shifts happen so quickly.
Yeah. Right. And stop fighting what we're drawn to do. And that's, like you said, it felt like a diary.
Yeah.
And it does. And so, like, it's not telling you necessarily something that you don't know, but in some ways it's like giving you permission to be who you are.
Yes.
And to trust that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think too, like for me anyways, like I find myself being like, is this what I'm meant to do? Or I was like, is this just what I think I'm meant to do? And then I get to go back to the chart and be like, okay, this is my energy. Like, this is what it's naturally meant for. I'm not trying to prove something. I'm not like, I get to ask myself those questions, which are not self questions, to be like, okay, I want to put myself back on track. I want to be in alignment. I want to feel this feeling of success. I get to do what I'm wired for. And so it's just this a reminder constantly of like, you get to come back to yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. And so if anyone follow her on Instagram, but also her website is laurenarmstrongtraining.com. And Lauren, I do have to plug this because I've been talking so much about emotional processing and releasing, and you offer deconditioning sessions, correct?
I do.
Yeah. So if you want to say really quickly what that is, I think it would be a disservice not to share that, because anyone who wants to make like that, it's a bit of a quantum leap of clearing something that was in the subconscious. She can help you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the invitation. So like I was sharing before, just kind of like around, if you have an open heart center and that feeling of like worthiness and deciding when you're not enough, we can use subconscious transformation to eliminate that decision. And so what I do in a deconditioning session is I pull your chart and I look at common patterns that happen in that chart. And then we have a discussion, like what's holding you back? And I allow your kind of subconscious to come through you and speak to me. And then I look for the root decision or event that kind of caused that. And then we eliminate it from your subconscious. So it's like, you can do that work on a daily basis, right? With affirmations, with, cultivating awareness of patterns. But we can also do it really quickly with subconscious transformation. And that's what we do in a deconditioning session.
Yeah. And truly, like, that's my new favorite game is, I used to do a ton of physical cleanses. And the funny thing is I am doing a physical cleanse right now, but now I just want to do energetic cleansing. I just want to like clear the crap so that I can keep moving forward as who I'm meant to be. And so these deconditioning sessions are a really powerful way to do that and to jumpstart that process for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting because like I got into that because I was helping people with their human design and I kept noticing like the patterns or the stuckness, right? It's like, okay, well, I know my design and I can do this, but like I'm not taking action or I'm not doing this and I don't know why. And then once I got the subconscious transformation learnings, I was like, oh, well, there's something in your subconscious that's stopping you from doing that. So let's clear it. And then you can leverage your design even further, even faster. Like you said, like quantum leap.
Yeah, exactly. And why not?
Why not?
Let's do it. Oh, Lauren, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and your energy. See, we're both actors, so we're not necessarily getting a ton of energy from each other.
Yeah. But I'm excited by my topic, so that's energizing.
And I'm excited by your topic too. And I get excited by podcasts and interviewing. So we're following our authorities. We also followed our authorities. We talked about this like a month ago, and we didn't put pressure on either one. And then when it felt right for me, I sent her the invitation to officially be, and then she checked that and she responded. So again, this plays into like everyday conversations and not just big decisions. And it's so much fun to continue to learn. And then I always watch Lauren on her Instagram, like, okay, how is she showing up? How is she doing this? As my nudge of like, okay, Projector, you can do this.
Yeah, you can do it. Show up excitedly. I love it. I love it. So cool.
So thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining. All the links to follow Lauren are in the show notes, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, Dana.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tuning In podcast. As always, if this would resonate with anyone you know, please share the episode. You can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans. or find me on my website at alignful.com.